Hey, this is Steve Halleck of TikToking. As always, I'm at Steve Halleck on Instagram and at TikToking.com. And I'm here today with a very special and cool piece. This is the Breguet La Tradition Tourbillon with Fusee chain. Now, you guys know I'm all about the independent brands, and I don't do a lot of the big brand stuff. But every now and then these big groups take on sort of like an R&D project, and you can tell like a little team amongst them has some ideas that they want to work on, and they make, a really special piece showcasing some amazing stuff that, may just not be totally possible for a little brand to do. And in those, you can find some really special pieces from the bigger brands, and I believe that this is one of them. So let's just dig straight into it. The first thing you obviously notice is this absolutely massive tourbillon. It's the biggest tourbillon I've ever seen. I know that there's some weird little brand at Basel or something that introduced some huge tourbillon, but in terms of stuff that really exists and things that you're ever going to see, this thing is just huge. I mean, you can see that the tourbillon is as big or bigger than my finger, and it takes up basically half the dial. So it's super visually stunning, basically. It definitely gets your attention. And this really is all about that idea of a micro machine under a big dome, which to me sort of summarizes where we are in watchmaking. It's kind of the whole movement that we're in right now is to highlight these machines. And so for that reason, I think this watch is particularly relevant right now and is a very excellent example of this sort of approach to watchmaking. Now, next to the tourbillon, you have the other big show in this watch, which is the Fusee chain. So I'll explain this as best I can. It's basically a constant force mechanism. So it ensures that the power coming from the mainspring is delivered to the escapement and the balance with regularity, no matter where it is in the power reserve. So normally you have these two basically directly coupled, and when the watch is all the way wound, the power that's getting there is actually a little bit stronger, and when the watch is near dying, it's a little bit weaker, and that can make problems for keeping consistent time, obviously. So the Fusee chain is a chain that's wrapped around the mainspring, and then it comes here to this cone, and as you wind it, it wraps up the cone. And so basically the actual shape of this cone and the unwinding around it at different lengths. So at the top, it's the smallest circumference, and at the bottom, it's the longest, compensates for the different amount of power coming from the mainspring. That's sort of the simplest way to put it. But in practice, the coolest thing about it is just that you have this giant chain. And I'm going to wind the watch so you can see the chain actually move here. So you can see it's winding up that cone, right? Now here you've got a power reserve gauge. So I started at about halfway, and you can see that we're going all the way up the cone. So there we are, pretty close to done. Now what you may have noticed also when I was tipping it there is no bezel on this watch at all. The top of the watch is a giant piece of sapphire, and it comes straight out of the case and curves around. So it gives a totally different idea of space. The watch is only 41 millimeters, but it looks much bigger because of the fact that there's no bezel. When you see it on my wrist, you'll be like, oh, okay, that's a totally wearable watch. It looks like a monster just like this when you have no context. So I'll obviously show you that at the end of the review. Here's the time, hours, minutes, super classic Breguet, nothing really to go over on that, and that's all it does. The watch doesn't do anything else other than time and this power reserve here. With the tourbillon, this is a special silicone tourbillon cage, silicone escapement, and maybe it's a titanium tourbillon cage, actually. But it's a silicone escapement and a silicone balance spring. So a lot of innovation there for Breguet, and the all showcased in this watch. On the back, you've got various wheels and stuff. Very nice finishing, but really the showcase is on the dial. So this is sort of the leftover stuff, but the real cool stuff is up here, right? Just let you see the angles here, and look at that. It's made of titanium, this tourbillon bridge. Just look how high it is. Look at that depth and the size of it to clear that giant cage. Pretty sick. And of course you have the depth of the cone needed for the Fusee. So you need a lot of space. And the watch is thick, but it's not crazy thick. I mean, you've got most of it is the sapphire dome. And if you took just the case without the sapphire top, it's not that abnormally thick, right? Let me show you the watch on the wrist. Oh, this particular version is in platinum, which is actually rare for the traditions. Most of them, there's like a normal Breguet tradition that looks somewhat like this. Obviously, the time's up there, and you don't have a giant tourbillon in Fusee. But for people who didn't know, it would look like this. And those are white gold. But for this model, obviously, it's their sort of flagship, and they put it in platinum. This one comes on a deployant. So let me buckle that and strap it on here. This is always the most riveting part of my videos, I'm sure. But I do these all in one take, so you get to see all of it. All right. So let's get this strapped on and clipped. Boom. All right, so here's the watch on the wrist. You can see the size is actually totally manageable. Like I said, it's 41 millimeters, but there's no bezel, so the entire thing, is 41 millimeters. Normally on a 41 millimeter watch, you'd have a bezel that's a few millimeters on each side, maybe 5, say. And so what you would actually see is only 31 or 34 millimeters or something. But this, you're getting a full 41 millimeters of stuff going on. And you can see it wears really nicely. I may consider, if I bought this watch and was wearing it a lot, I'd probably put it on some different colored straps. It could, I'm sure, look really cool on like a blue strap, or even like a brown strap would be nice. Breguet makes a really nice gray strap that I think would be pretty cool on it. But you can see that the tourbillon is just visually incredible on this watch, and really unlike anything I've ever seen. So kudos to Swatch Group and Breguet for making a really super badass watch. This has real creativity, real craftsmanship, real innovation, and I wish these guys would do much more stuff like this, because this is the type of product you can get when these companies that have major resources are actually creative and make something really cool. So I hope you enjoyed this. This is the Breguet La Tradition Tourbillon with Fusee, and that's all for now.